All right. Welcome everyone to this episode of PEPTalk, Productive Environment Podcast. Today, we are going to talk about how to stop guessing and how that applies in the world of productivity and organizing, right? Stop guessing. What does that mean? What does stop guessing mean? So if you watched our last podcast, and if you didn't, we'll make sure we put a link to it in the notes. We are actually talking about assessing, taking an assessment for various parts of your life. It's not just in organization and productivity, but it is in, Barbara, we were just talking about you going to a nutritionist. And, if you walk into your nutritionist office and you say, I want to eat better. And they're not going to just jump right in and tell you what to do because they want to know how you're eating now. And what does better mean? What are you eating now? So that's just a quick example. But before we get started, I am Andrea Anderson, CEO of Productive Environment Institute, and I am based in Carolina Beach, North Carolina, and I am joined by...
I'm Barbara Hemphill, founder of Productive Environment Institute in Raleigh, North Carolina.
All right, guys, let everybody just settle in now. And what do we mean by stop guessing? All right. So as I said, last episode, we were talking about assessing, making assessments. And in this world, in our world of productivity and organization, that could be when somebody says, I don't have enough time, or, I have too many emails. What does that mean? How many do you have? How many is too many? And too many for what? So those are some examples of things that we want to assess. So last episode, we talked about slowing down enough to see reality. So when we said assess, we just said pause. We said pause, just pause, look around, take a deep breath. And this week, we're going to talk about what makes assessments useful, why it's important, and not just pausing anymore. It's not just about awareness, because awareness alone doesn't really change anything, right? Assessment becomes powerful when it gives you something measurable. And the title of this episode is something that, Barbara, you say a lot, all the time, is you can't change what you don't measure. So you can't change what you don't measure. And other areas, Barbara, I was thinking about this for you, and other areas of your life. I know you've got plants. You had somebody come out and help you plant and do something with your plants and your, so again, that I bet, I'm going to guess that somebody came out first and assessed your yard, assessed your situation. Is that right?
Yeah, that's how. And actually, I have a landscaping person coming tomorrow, because when we renovated the house, all the landscaping, which was done 30 years ago, it was destroyed. So we're starting over, and tomorrow the landscape designer is coming at 9:00 in the morning. And what we are doing is we are assessing the situation, and he's going to ask me, what do I want, so that he has a way to measure it. But I have an example of something that I've been doing that's really tiny about measuring, but really important.
Okay.
When we renovated the house, I redid our garage so that it's really lovely. It has an acrylic lavender floor, and it's right around the corner from my office. And I have a rebounder and a hula hoop in it.
Oh, fun.
And so now during the day, I go in for just a few minutes at a time, because I don't go into the gym and exercising for an hour is just my idea of hell. And so I do it in little bits. And so I am measuring how many times I can keep the hula hoop up. My maximum so far is 150, and I started at 50.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, to this point, there's an anchor line for you guys to think about, is if you can't describe it, you can't change it. So you can describe that you did 50 hula hoops, you did 50 hoops without stopping, right? And then did you set a goal of 150, or did you set a goal for more each day?
I just set a goal to increase it by at least 5 each day. And some days I increase it by 5, and sometimes I don't make it. Sometimes I drop it. And sometimes when I drop it, I just quit. And other times I go back and try it again. But my goal is just, and I'm a big one about just saying, am I making progress? I'm not not a strong goal setter specifically because I'm too easily discouraged. And so as long as I'm making progress, I'm happy.
Yeah.
So that's what, as long as I'm making progress, I'm happy. And I've gone from 50 to 150. So that's a pretty big step. And
That's progress.
That's about over 3 months time.
That's amazing. Good for you. The key here is not so much that you measured a goal, like I'm going to do this many. The key here is you knew where you started. You had a baseline, right? You had a benchmark. You started at 50, right? So okay. So you didn't guess. You didn't say, oh, I guess I could probably do 50 hula hoops, or I could probably do 20, or I could probably do 100. You figured it out. You did it. You assessed. So same thing. I know that's just an example, but so, the guessing problem. I want you guys to think about, do you hear yourself saying things like this? And if you're in the chat, if you're joining us live, comment in the chat if you would. Do you ever hear yourself say, even to yourself, I feel overwhelmed? Okay. Do you ever feel that? Do I feel overwhelmed? Just type overwhelmed in the chat, wherever you're watching from.
If there's anybody who doesn't ever feel overwhelmed, I want to meet them.
Right? I don't think you'd be listening to this podcast if you didn't feel overwhelmed, at least sometimes. Even Barbara and I feel overwhelmed sometimes. Right? But that can be very vague. We're going to talk about that in a second. So comments, let's hear from you. I have too much. I have too much stuff. Do you ever say that? Do you ever find yourself saying, I have too much stuff? Okay. I don't have time. Nancy's like, yes. Hold on. Let me put her on the screen because she popped on. Nancy says, yes. Okay. All right. Thanks, Nancy. Anybody else? I don't have time. All right. There's another yes from Nancy. She's found herself saying these things. Here's one. My email is out of control. You guys ever say that? My email is out of control. Okay. So what do you think based on those statements? I feel overwhelmed. I have too much. I don't have time. My email is out of control. What strikes you about those terms or those phrases? All right. So I'll give you the answer. Feelings, those are feelings, and feelings are real, but they're also vague. Right? They're vague. Like again, how much is too much? How much time do you need? And if you feel like you don't have time. So, yeah, vague problems lead to random action. All right. Because if you don't really know how much time you actually have and how much time you need, and then measuring the reality of how much time maybe you waste or spend on certain things. That's a place to start if you feel like, time management, Barbara, has been a huge buzzword and a huge topic for a really long time, more so than organization and productivity. People just think I'm overwhelmed because I don't have enough time.
And one of the things I've heard from so many speakers through the years is, you can't manage time. Everybody has 24 hours in a day. You can only manage yourself, which is,
manage your energy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really true.
Energy management, all those other things. So you're right. We all have the same calendar. We all have the same hours in the day and days in the week and the month and so forth. But it's what we do with those. But we can't be vague about it or we won't change. So overwhelm is often the result of not knowing what you're actually dealing with. And one example, a personal home example is, and this is personal because this is me sometimes. A lot. But I have to do laundry. It's going to take forever. Or, I got to clean the kitchen, but I don't have time. It's like, if I'm not really looking and assessing and seeing how much I really have, I'm exaggerating. Like, I don't really know how long it's going to take me. And usually it takes a whole lot less time than I think it's going to. So reframe that into measurement. Okay. So what measurement really means. Measurement is not judgment. When you take your temperature, do you have a judgment? Does the thermometer judge you for what your temperature is that day at that particular time? Probably not. Measurement is not performance. Okay. It's a baseline, and measurement is not comparison. Okay. It's information. It's information. So let me tell you what measurement is. It's counting. Okay, how many emails? How much time? People do a lot of time tracking. There's time tracking tools out there to really, really assess how much time you're actually spending on certain tasks and activities. Noticing frequency. How often are you doing certain things? How often are you checking your email throughout the day without processing your email? We talk about that a lot in our SOAR membership program. There's a difference between checking email and processing email. Checking is a habit. It's like an IV drip of dopamine of just like, oh, do I have anything? There's a new email. And it's just like throughout the day, if you're constantly looking or scrolling on social media. So those are, again, processing versus checking. Processing is, okay, now I'm going to check my email intentionally. I'm going to look, I'm going to see which emails need action, which could be a reply, or I'm going to see which emails I want to keep for future reference, or I can decide I don't need it and I can delete it. So what I just described to you is what we call the art of organizing information: action, reference, toss. That is processing. That's processing your email. That's processing your paper, and so forth. Another thing that measurement is seeing volume. How much? One of the fun things we like to do in some of our workshops is we say, grab a pile of paper from your desk or near your desk that is just kind of stacked up. And we see some that are like this, and we see some that are like this, and we see some that are like this, and just a portion of other stuff around the office. There's piles. And so that's volume. We want to see the volume of what you're dealing with. And then also identifying patterns. Okay. So before we move forward, I want to share, just to bring some context. I shared with you guys on the last podcast that we have this framework that we work with our clients on. When people say, I'm overwhelmed or I need to get organized, we have a 9-step path that we lead them through. And we are currently still on the very first one, assess. This is the part where we are designing a plan for our workspace. Okay, so we're right here in step 1. So I just want to bring you guys some context there. Okay, so examples of measurement. As I mentioned, time. Where do those hours actually go? So I know there are a lot of coaches that recommend that you keep a little notebook, or it could be your phone or something where you jot down, when you're starting a certain activity. And then how long does that take you? And if you veer off and you end up on social media instead of back on what you were working on, how long were you gone? How long were you away? Okay. The other example I just shared was paper. How much of it exists? So Barbara, let me ask you this. I know in the past you would go into people's offices physically on site, and you still do some of that just to stay fresh and current.
Yeah.
What are you looking for? What are our certified productive environment specialists? What is something that you visually want to see before you dive into any of the systems or the strategies? Just visually, what are you looking at when you walk into an office, or they're showing you around virtually on their phone or computer?
Well, the main reason is to know what questions to ask the client. Mm-hmm. Because what I see and what they see may not be the same thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, I see that in my marriage all the time. I mean, there's something to me that's blatantly obvious. And my husband will say, well, I never noticed.
Yep.
And in fact, I remember with one of the very first clients I had, it was just such an example. She had a painted metal flower hanging on her kitchen window frame that was dirty. It was ugly and dirty. And when I walked in, that was the first thing I saw. I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, well, it turned out it was 25 years old. I mean, her kid had done it, who was now 40, living outside the house. She just never noticed. So when I'm walking into somebody's office, I want to see what I noticed, but then I need to find out what they're noticing, because if I try to help them deal with what I notice, they're not going to be a happy client.
You want to see if they notice the same thing. Yeah. So as far as paper goes, are you looking around at the volume of paper?
Oh, absolutely. You're looking at, and whether there's whether there's file cabinets. I mean, sometimes you go in and there's empty file cabinets and there's papers that just never got in there. Other times there are file cabinets that are completely packed, and there's also boxes and loose papers. So I'm looking to see what the options are to fix the problem.
Yeah. And to your point, they may not see that anymore. They may not see the volume. I mean, they feel overwhelmed, but they may not connect it. We talked about this a lot with time management. When people, I think it's socially acceptable to say, I don't have enough time. But a high percentage of the time, they don't have enough time because they're spending time looking for information. They're looking for a document they should have or thought they had, or they're creating something new. They don't connect the overwhelm and the clutter, paper or digital. They're not connecting that with their time problem. So it's socially acceptable to say, I'm so busy, I don't have enough time. It's more acceptable to say that than to say, I have a lot of clutter. I have a lot of paper piles. I have a lot of email in my inbox piling up. But they are connected. They truly are. Let me share Tony's comment here before we move on. Tony says, loving this, feeling all of the above today. Life happens. That's right, Tony. It sure does. Thanks for the wisdom and reminders. I'm getting at it today. See you all soon. Yay. That's right. Glad you're here, Tony. Yes. Okay. So email, when it comes to email, a couple of things you can measure there is how many email messages you currently have. Now, when we started our digital transformation boot camps, one of the first questions I asked was, how many emails do you have in your inbox? Well, then the questions came back to me were, well, which inbox? Okay, well, the inbox in, your primary account. Oh, well, I have 3 accounts, or I have 7 accounts, or I have whatever. So then we had to start going, okay, what's your primary? And then you have these additional ones, and how are we using those? So how many emails are we starting with? How many accounts do you have? We start there. We don't just say, okay, here's how you fix your email problem. We don't even know what the email problem is yet. So we have to measure that, right? Another thing you can measure is your commitments. How many active obligations do you have? Now, Barbara, I know you have a whole lot more active obligations than I do. So how do you know when somebody says, Barbara, can you serve on XYZ committee? Or Barbara, can you help us with this big event? How do you measure if you have the bandwidth to say yes or no?
Well, one of the very painful lessons that I've had to learn, and took me longer to learn than I care to admit, is that now I have to say, thank you so much for thinking of me. It sounds like a wonderful opportunity. I need to think about it or pray about it or whatever. Because, and then I've had to learn to say no, even to things that I really support and really want. And I'm so grateful. Years ago, Joyce Meyer taught me something that I've used. And when she had to say no, she would say, thank you so much for thinking of me. I'm really honored, but I don't have peace about it. And I've used that with other people, but I've also used it with myself. Do I have peace about this? There's something different between thinking you should do this and sometimes you have to do it. I mean, okay, we're coming around the time it's taxes. I mean, there's some things I just literally have to do. So then I've got to figure out a way to do it. But the other one is, do I have peace about this? As we often say in PEI, you have to give up the good to get the best. And so then the question is this the best use of my time? And busy is, when somebody says they're busy, I'm dying to talk to them, because if somebody says I'm busy, I guarantee you they haven't prioritized their life as well as they could.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that's why our tagline at Productive Environment Institute, there's a lot of productivity gurus out there who say, get more done. So basically get more done so you can get more done. Get so organized so you can do more work. And ours is accomplish your work and enjoy your life. We could say accomplish your work so you can enjoy your life. So we really want you to have both. Don't pack your schedule so full that you don't have time to breathe, to take
I just want to correct one thing in there. I think you said that we could say accomplish your work so you could enjoy your life. But what we've learned is you have to enjoy your life in order to be able to accomplish.
Yeah, it can go the other way. Accomplish your work or enjoy your life so you can accomplish your work.
That's right. Because so often people think that, and I remember one of my first clients was someone that I worked with for several days. And it was organized. I mean, she was a hoarder. I mean, just piles and piles of paper in room after room. And when I asked her why she wanted to do that, why did she want to get organized? It was so she could move her family to Hawaii. That was what it was about. And ultimately she was able to do that. And part of the reason she was able to do it was that we had to put some enjoyment in there as an incentivizing method to get her to do the things that she really had to do in order to move forward.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. And, let me back up to volume just a minute here. We were talking about volume. How much paper do we see? How much clutter? How much stuff do we see? I was thinking about Barbara's famous quote, clutter is postponed decisions. If you're new here and you've never heard that before, jot it down. Clutter is postponed decisions. So I want you to think about whether it's your space or someone else's space that you've seen that is overloaded, overwhelmed with clutter, like a lot of paper, a lot of stuff, a lot of odds and ends, whatever. What I think that could, just seeing that can be overwhelming. Oh, I have way too much. I'm never going to get this done. I'm never going to make any progress. It's too much. I don't even know where to start. I don't know what to do. I think that your progress is less about the volume of stuff and more about your ability to make decisions.
And you're absolutely right. Make the decisions. And Andrea, I learned this from you. I remember very clearly when you said to me, Barbara, it's not enough to make a decision. You have to have a way to implement the decision. And that led into what we're so passionate about now, which is system, saving you space, time, energy, and money, which is true. We can apply that to exercise. We can apply this to nutrition. We can apply it to anything that you need to have a system in order to measure what you're doing and improve it.
Yeah. So now, no matter how much volume of stuff you have, if you implement the system, and of course that would be the system that we teach, if you implement the system and you develop the habit of making decisions, and we give you a decision-making framework. I just gave you one. Action, reference, toss, the art of organizing information. That's a very simplified version of our systems, but that's a place to start. And you increase that decision-making muscle. The more you do it, the faster you get. And having somebody by your side, whether it be sitting in your office with you or across a Zoom screen like this is what our certified productive environment specialists do with our clients. This is what our SOAR members and our SOAR to Success program, this is exactly what they do. We work together to help them. We don't make the decisions for them ever. That's not our role. Our role is to help facilitate the decision-making process. Before I go on, I want to share Kathy Music's comment. She said, there has to be a balance. The scales tip one way or the other from time to time, but you have to have both, enjoying work and life. That's right. Yep, you're right. The scales do set. Sometimes there's a lot more work. You've got a big project or a launch or something you're working on, and there's more work time accomplishing your work than there is enjoying your life. So there is a balance. You do go, then when it's launched, and then you can take a breath and say, oh, I'm going to go on vacation. I'm going to take a nap. So yeah, the balance is absolutely important. So think about this. Measurement turns emotion into information. Okay. Measurement turns emotion into information, and that applies to lots of different areas of our lives. Okay. So why does measurement come before changing anything? Why do we need to measure? Why does the doctor need to go through diagnostic things? Diagnose means he or she has assessed the situation first. So the core principle there is that you can't improve what you haven't defined. So Barbara defined that she wanted to check how many hula hoops she could do. She defined that she was able to do 50. She measured and found I can do 50. Okay, so she took a measurement. So what measurement gives you is a starting point, right? It gives you a starting point, baseline, benchmark. There's lots of different terms for the same thing. A way to know if something's working. Barbara, if you had just said, okay, I did 50, and then the next day you did 50, and then the next day you did 50, and the next day you did 50, and you didn't go up, that may be fine. That may be okay with you, but you said you wanted to increase. And with your diet, I think you said you wanted to improve. So when we want to improve, we have to know where we're starting from to know if something is working or not, right? Were you going to say something?
No, go ahead. That's fine.
Okay. And relief from guessing, not just saying, oh, I think, or I feel, or I'm overwhelmed because, so relief from the guessing. Let me see what Nancy said. Nancy says work can be more enjoyable if we have systems. Yeah, honestly, Nancy, you're such a great example of this too, that systems, a lot of times people think systems are constrictive, like, oh, I'm a free thinker, I'm a creative, systems will restrain me. It's actually the opposite. Systems are very liberating. Systems are liberating.
One of the things that artists often say, oh, I'm an artist. Artists are naturally
Yeah.
messy. And I've heard that, I don't know how many times. And that can be, any form of art, but it's not true. It's actually freeing to have a system. And it doesn't mean it's always going to be that way. And a good example is the common phrase, a place for everything and everything in its place. And some people think that's what you teach. You're an organizing consultant, a place for everything and everything in its place. Wrong. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's obsessive compulsive. Everything is not, because life is messy, but it is, as we often say, half right. There needs to be a place for everything, because otherwise it's clutter. And not everything's always going to be in its clutter, so in its place. So the question then is, does a system allow you to clean it up? And we tell the story over and over about how my system is, I'll live with 1 week's worth of clutter, but it has to take me 30 minutes to clean it up. If it takes me longer than 30 minutes to clean it up, then I know there's something wrong with the system. And one of my clients heard that story and said, okay, I could do it in 5 minutes. And so he's willing in 1 day. So his level of clutter is 1 day and 5 minutes to clean it up. My level of clutter is 1 week and 30 minutes to clean it up.
I love it. So it's guardrails. It's putting some boundaries on things. And that's actually, it's not restrictive. It is liberating. So just remember that. Okay. So measurement doesn't tell you what to do. It tells you where you are. So Barbara was at 50. Almost said jumping jacks. No. Barbara was at 50 hula hoops. And some of you are at 20,000 emails. Some of you are at, 10 banker's boxes of paper. So it tells you where you are. Okay. So I want to just give you a gentle invitation, not homework. Gentle invitation for this week's focus is to choose one area, just one. I know I gave lots of examples, but just pick one area, whether it's your paper, your email, your dishes, whatever that is. Choose one area and count or notice one thing about that area. Okay. How many emails do I have in my inbox? Okay. Let's get real. How many piles of paper do I have in my office? How many commitments do I have to other people and outside entities? You're not going to fix anything yet. We just want you to notice a number. Last week, we talked about just pause and notice. This week, we're saying pause, notice, and measure. So wherever you save things, whether it's on a notebook or on your phone or if you're in our program, you're on your scoreboard, document something you're measuring. Okay. Maybe it's the number, maybe it's your desktop, your computer desktop, all the icons on your computer desktop. Take a screenshot of that and say, okay, I have way too many. Well, how many do you have? I mean, it's the full screen. I don't know if you have to count them all, but at least, it's either full screen, half screen, notice. Okay. So you're going to want to know how much of something. These are just some examples of things that you're going to measure. How much, how often, how many. So maybe how often do I slip into social media, and how much time am I spending there or wasting there? Those are things that you can prompt yourself with. Okay. And just remember, this is information. It's not a verdict. It's not, Barbara, as you say, often it's not a moral issue. Okay. It's just information. All right. So just remember that measurement is neutral. Okay, measurement is neutral. It is what it is. You guys heard that statement. It is what it is. You're measuring the truth. Progress starts with the truth. So, so think about that in your own space. You can think about it right now as you're listening to this, as we wrap up. We are winding down now. I do want to tell you, this is part of a series. And on our next podcast, we are going to talk about why people avoid measurement. Okay. And a lot of times that has to do with shame, guilt, feeling bad about themselves, judging themselves. So we're going to talk about why people avoid measurement and how to face the truth without shame. So Barbara, any closing thoughts as we wrap up this episode of Pep Talk?
Well, I was just thinking about it when you said people avoid measurement. One of the reasons is they avoid pausing. So that takes us back to our first one where we said you have to pause. And a lot of people are just like gerbils in a wheel, and they're not willing to pause enough to even measure.
That's right. That's good. That's good. All right, guys, thank you for joining us. Please, if you are new to us, like this video, share this video on YouTube, especially, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss an episode. We do go live every Tuesday at noon Eastern. Most Tuesdays at noon Eastern we are live. If we are not live for some reason, we will restream a fan favorite. So there will be something at noon Eastern on Tuesdays. Otherwise, you can catch us when it works for your schedule. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye.